What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, I wanted to go over the Isak, Liverpool, and Ekitike Newcastle situation that's been going on. Um, Isak's been linked to Liverpool for a little while now, and it hasn't really been shut down. You had Ben Jacobs a couple weeks ago say that Liverpool were going to prepare a formal offer to Newcastle for Isak, and nobody's shut it down. It's kind of the link has always kind of been there. It seems like they're the team that's going to push for him the most. And obviously, the news today from a lot of sources saying that Liverpool are prioritizing a nine, Isak's their number one option, and they're ready to make a bid roughly 120, 130 million euro region as a starting price, which is huge. It's a big move for them if they can get it done. Um, Obviously, this comes right after Newcastle's interest and bid at roughly 80 million euros for Ekitike. And there's been some people kind of misinterpreting that, oh, Newcastle wants to play them together and play Ekitike or Isak off the wing and have the other one go down the middle. But if you really read the articles about it, it mainly is saying that they want them both as attacking options, which I think Newcastle would want to bring Ekitike in as an understudy and have him get adjusted for the league for a year, and Isak goes next year. Has always been my thought that he's going to go somewhere like Bayern or Barca or even Liverpool or whoever next season, not this season, because I think it would be more affordable for most teams. And the interest in Isak from Liverpool has maybe accelerated this timeline that he could leave this summer, and it seems like they're putting Newcastle in a funky position because if they don't get Isak and they get a no from the player, because it really comes down to the player now, then they're gonna go for Ekitike. So it kind of leaves Newcastle in a spot where they can hold on to Isak, and obviously he's the way better player, and they could still sell him next year for probably around 100 million, or they can sell him now, cash in on him, make the profit, and buy Ekitike for a cut rate price, than what he might be, or another striker maybe next year. Because if they are to get money from Isak, the price is going to go up. People are going to know they have more money and want to upcharge them. So, what talking about it from Newcastle perspective, if they're able to keep Isak and bring in Ekitike, I think it's a really good move. I think that is their actual goal because they lacked a lot of depth in the Champions League when they were last in it, and obviously Callum Wilson's gone, and they can go sign another striker of that ilk or go for someone younger that has upside but maybe isn't as proven in a top league yet. But I think Ekitike is a better move because he has a lot more upside, shows a lot more potential, and has the Isak profile. But because he has that profile, I think a lot of people think he's going to be the replacement for Isak. So, from a Liverpool perspective, they should just go out and drop the money. They should go and spend 130, 140 million and try and convince the player, because I'm sure he'd love to go to the team, but they're not really in control of that. If Isak doesn't want to go, then Newcastle will basically price them out of a move, because there's no reason paying 160 to 200 million for a player that isn't head over heels to go for you. And I think this situation will be resolved pretty quickly within the week, because teams are obviously starting preseason, and I think they want to move on to another nine, and it could be Ekitike. They could miss out on Ekitike. They could get a Sesko. They still could get an Ollie Watkins, or I forget who the other person is that they were looking at, but Liverpool are a team that doesn't mess around in the transfer window. Obviously, you see that with a lot of the deals they got done. So, if Isak tells them, I'm okay staying, I'm not going to push for the move, which what I think will happen, then I could see them walking away from this deal and probably picking up Ekitike, honestly. And then it forces Newcastle to go look for someone else. I don't think they'll go for a Benjamin Sesko because I don't think he wants to be an understudy. And I don't think even if you wanted to play him with Isak, because I think Isak and Ekitike could play on paper in a team together. I don't think they would go. I don't think Sesko can. I don't think his profile matches that. But this is a crazy situation. And if Liverpool are able to land Isak, this changes the whole game. In my mind, they're already title favorites. Um, but with this, it's like they're favorites to win the Champions League. They're favorites to win the league. They're favorites to win everything, and they'll be one of the best teams in the world with Verts, Isak, Salah. There's still a possibility they get Rodrigo. It may be hard to raise money now for Liverpool because Darwin Nunez moved to Napoli, which is preferred choice. Seems like it's over because they just signed, I believe his name is Lucchini, as their striker, and maybe he goes Saudi. Obviously, they can offer big money for him, but maybe the player doesn't want to do that because obviously that's like giving up on your career for money, basically. And you see players kind of regret even going to Saudi. You even see John Duran going on loan to Turkey. You saw Gabri Vega go there for a year from Celta Vigo, already back in Europe at I think he's at Porto or Sporting. I believe he's in Portugal. Yeah, and I maybe hard to do that. And also the Luis Diaz situation. Bayern submitted I think it was around 70 million euro bid for Luis Diaz, which Liverpool immediately rejected and said they want 100 million plus euros for him, but also said that they don't want him to leave, which I don't know why you would set a price if you want him to leave or if you don't want him to leave. So I think Luis Diaz could be sold, and maybe that makes room for a Rodrigo or another left wing option that they bring in. Um, but yeah, we have to see. I think Liverpool is moving like a big club in this transfer window. They're showing no nonsense. They won the league. They want to retain it. They want to win Champions Leagues. They want to win more trophies, do a treble, do whatever. And they're the only team really that's operating like that. We see Arsenal, who's going for Gyökeres, which I'm excited about, but it's been about 3 days since we got the "here we go soon," and there's nothing. It seems like Sporting's more of the problem with this, but if I'm Arsenal, just give them the money and just move on so we could sign an Eze and maybe a Rodrigo. I doubt it. I doubt we'll get all three. Um, but they're the City obviously make great signings. Reinders, Aitnori, Cherky. They're great players, and obviously they're in for Rodrigo too. But even now, I don't see any team beating Liverpool if they bring in a nine, no matter who it is, really. You still have Salah, you still have Van Dijk, you still have Verts, McAllister. Um, you brought in Frimpong and Kirkes, who are two very good fullbacks. And this team is serious. This team is one of the most well-rounded squads in the 11 in the world, let alone in the league. The only downside I would say is if they pay 130, 140 million, even 120 million for Isak, I still feel like this team, and obviously they're going to raise money if they sell Nunes for 50, if they sell Diaz for 80, and they sold Konsa for 40, they could still have a lot of money to bring players in. I still think this team needs depth in defense. I think they'll need, if they lose Kanate, they'll need 2 or 3 center backs, but I still think they need 1 or 2 center backs. Obviously, they're looking at Gahey, but that only seems like it's going to happen if Kanate leaves, because I doubt Gahey wants to go to Liverpool during a World Cup year and not really play. Obviously, Konate's hurt, and they don't want, Van Dijk's old, so, but I don't know. I could see it. I would probably see him coming in and Konate leaves to Madrid or something like that. But I still think they need another center back to fill Kwanzaa's role because they have someone like Joe Gomez, but how fit is he going to be because he struggles with injuries so much, and he could play anywhere across the back line, but I don't know if he will. I don't know if he'll be fit enough to cover for if you lose a Van Dijk for a long period of time, if you lose Konate, who's been pretty good with injuries recently, but he still does miss time. In the fullbacks, they're pretty covered. You have Bradley, you have Frimpong, you have Kirkes, Robertson, and Simicast still to fill in those spots, but none of them can really shift into the middle and play center back. So that's what I think their main issue is in depth. I still think they need a proper DM. I rate Gravenberch, and I think he could be a starting DM for them, but I think they need kind of like a more defensive-minded, holding, sit-back DM than a Gravenberch, who's someone that likes to go forward a little bit more and likes to progress play. But it seems like Liverpool are going for a kind of attacking approach when you have players like Frimpong and Kirkes at the fullbacks that like to get forward, and you're going to pack a midfield with McAllister and Verts, who I think McAllister could be. I thought McAllister would be the 10. Um, but obviously he could play anywhere across the midfield three. But I see him more as a progressive 8 to a 10. And then they probably do need one or two more players up top. Obviously, they lost a player due to unfortunate circumstances. They want to sell Nunez. It looks like they do. Luis Diaz says he wants to go, so you probably need to bring in two or three more forwards, with one or two of them being a number 9. Obviously, you can have Gakpo filling at the 9, and maybe you say Salah can fill it at the 9 or Chiesa can fill him at the 9. And they still have Harvey Elliott who could play out on the right, but he could also leave if someone like Isak is to come in and maybe a winger. Maybe he sees that his time is kind of limited with Szoboszlai, McAllister, Verts in that attacking midfield role. So I think Liverpool is a really interesting team to look at right now in the transfer window. They're very good in negotiating, very good selling team, and they still have a lot to buy. They're definitely not done in this transfer window. So I would be on the lookout for them. I think if I'm going to give a probability that Isak goes to Liverpool, I think it's 99% chance that they land one of Isak or Ekitike. Really, I could see it going either. I would give it a 50% chance, 55% chance that Isak even goes to Liverpool, because I can see a world where he says, I'll stay for another year. I won't sign an extension because I still have 3 years left on my deal, and I'll go next year for a cheaper price so I can get more money for myself and my agent, and possibly expand myself to go into more places because more teams will be willing to pay for me, like a Barcelona, who I think if he is to go next year, I think that's the team that would land in. Obviously, with Lewandowski aging, and I think he would maybe be more willing to be an understudy and play less games. And then obviously Isak can look at himself and be like, I have Yamal and I have Rafinha. Two players. Rafinha's a little older, but Yamal's just turned 18. I have him for basically as long as I need him. And you have players like Pedri and De Jong and Balde and Koundé, all who are all players that contribute into the attack. Even though the last two I said are fullbacks, they all contribute and get forward. And Hansi Flick is an incredible manager. I think that's a little bit more appetizing as a player. Even if you don't go to a Barca, you can go to a Bayern. You could even go to Liverpool next year. I'm sure they'd be still willing to sign you. Maybe Chelsea are a team that's like, all right, we signed João Pedro and Delap, but maybe one of them doesn't work out, and we're ready to push to be a serious team and buy an Isak. Or even Madrid. Maybe Madrid want an actual number 9 instead of playing Mbappe or Vinny in that position. But yeah, that's my thoughts on both deals. Definitely one to look out for. One I'll make another video on once we get a here we go for either player. I think Ekitike will most likely be a here we go before Isak, because I think he'll be kind of like the domino that falls and shows whether Isak stays, whether Isak goes. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.